Hello, this is our Rats with Team 4545 League analyzing the game between J.H. Beaches and J. Antonio. This was played in Team Event 53 in Round 6. Let's have a look. Okay, so we've got an English with all kinds of ways to transpose into other openings. One nice thing about the English opening, you can take it to a lot of different variations. Okay, Black missed his chance to go into a Gruenfeld type with 2d5, but that's okay. What he's playing is fine. And d3 is kind of slow, but it's going to transpose into the Botvinnik system here in a moment. Black could even play e5, and this would be like a closed Sicilian reversed. Nothing wrong with e5 here. As I said, this opening has so many transpositional possibilities. It's very flexible. Neither side really has much to fear of getting a reasonable game as long as you're careful. Okay, so he played c6, and that's not a bad move. It's not necessarily the choice I would play. It takes away a square from the knight that it normally wants to develop with, but okay, so e4. Now this is what is known as the Botvinnik formation, and I've mentioned this before in other videos, and this is what I mean, the pawns I circled. That's the Botvinnik formation. It can be played with white or black, and generally what white does is he will follow up with knight g to e2, and that doesn't happen in this position, and a lot of times there's a fight over d5, but one thing about black setup here, he's put this pawn on c6 to keep white out of d5, and this can be done in systems when white directly goes in for the Botvinnik. Usually it comes up a little bit later, and white has methods of dealing with that, which are pretty much beyond the scope of this video because it doesn't really follow the true motif of the Botvinnik system. And here's where it is. Like I say, knight g to e2 is the normal move, and then white will just castle short and play for f4 and try to get f5 in. Then if he can get his other pawns rolling, h3, g4, g5, and so forth, he has some wonderful attacking chances on the king side. But knight to f3, although ideally it's a better square for the knight, it kind of gets in the way of the f-pawn, so it changes a lot of what this opening was about or could have been in relation to Botvinnik's system. Okay, so let's go on. And b6 I'm not really sure about. It's not bad. It's not something white can super easily exploit. But the one thing it doesn't do is it doesn't develop this queen side. Okay, they're the four pieces all developed, and black's just kind of playing this, they call it hippopotamus style, where you put your pawns on the third rank and invite white to advance his pawns and break something open. And so anyway, just proceeds with development. Okay, good. Now the bishop's developed, and likewise. And now white has kind of some interesting maneuvers at his disposal, which he didn't do. One of the themes you do when you have d5 eyeballing you there, and there it is, and it's something black can do too in this position. The maneuver is knight to c1, knight to e1 to c2, then you got to get it to e3, so the bishop's in the way, and then you're controlling d5. Alternatively, black is actually a better disposed to do this than white is, and he'll do it by knight c6, knight e8, knight c7, knight e6, and then he's going to plunk a knight in on d4. And I've got some games in my history with where these maneuvers took place, and it's a pretty potent maneuver. So it's a way to combat the Botvinnik system as black. It's something to remember if you run into it, something to prepare for if you play it. Okay, so queen d2, and it seems like what white's doing is he's getting ready to set up this this bishop h6 thing and trade off the fianchettoed bishop, and I don't know. I'm always against that. I think it's kind of a waste of a good piece, because if you look at the pawn structure here, a lot of the white pawns are set on white squares. Why does he want to get rid of his dark squared bishop? That's his most useful bishop. And I've seen some people, they will actually play the style that they'll play rook e1, okay, or rook e8 rather, and then on bishop h6 they'll drop the bishop back to preserve it. And I've seen this maneuver going on since I was a kid, and I never quite understood it. I never liked it. I have another game played against a really strong German in ICCF masterclass where the recommended idea for white was to do exactly this: drop the bishop back and save it. As I was white and I had my fiend-coated bishop, and my opponent was trying to set up that bishop to h3 idea, which I've shown with the arrow. And the book theory was to do exactly what I just did from the black side: put the rook on e1 and drop the bishop back. And I didn't like the kind of positions that history had shown resulted from that, and I just let him trade it, and I got this really good game as a result. So in effect, I improved on opening theory, and part of it was just my prejudice against saving the bishop. Now sometimes you need to do it. It's not always a bad idea to preserve the bishop, but I think here black should be welcome to trade off that bishop, because what's white's follow-up? He's not ready for f4 by any means. Well, he can be, but he's not ready now. And black should be okay here. This white bishop is not going to help much in the attack, at least not yet. And black should be okay. So anyway, let's just go to the main line, see what happens. Okay, so now black goes ahead and does this. He's trying to get the bishop, and I see so much of this in league play. People trying to get that bishop pair, and I'm not saying it's a bad idea. There's, if you have the bishop over the knight, I've shown many times I keep quoting this game, Stoltz-Kasht in The Hague 1928, where Kasht improved the bishop beats the knight in the ending, but there's been virtually no instances of this happening. Maybe one or a couple times maybe there was a possibility to go into it, and the players didn't actually go for that when they had a chance to do it. So that's the really advantage of bishop versus knight, is you get that ending. Other than that, you got to hope that your bishop is good in the middle game and is going to pick you up some kind of a decent decisive advantage. And here in this position, with the center kind of semi-locked up, the bishops aren't all that active, so knights are actually a little preferable here. And what was black's alternative? Let's just discuss for a moment. Well, we've talked about development. We've got to get this in at some point, okay? Well, we could play there, or we could just go back and play the maneuver I suggested. I mean, what's wrong with that? Okay, let's burn some moves for white, okay? Let's just go about what you might logically try to do is attack on the king side, okay? And then, well, now if f5, we've stopped knight e6. But at the same time, black can still play knight d4, and that's a wonderful square for the knight. And it's not clear exactly what white is threatening here. If he trades pawns, he still hasn't done a great deal. And black's got this wonderful knight on d4, much better than trading it off for that bishop. And it's white to move. I guess you're going to play g4, go along the themes of what I said. Of course, that can hang this guy, so we got to be careful. Black can counterattack in the center. How to meet a wing attack? Play in the center, and there it is. And it's got its own wing attack in mind. So white doesn't really have a great deal here, other than the advantage that his queen is developed and black's isn't. Otherwise, development is pretty even. Okay, so white could go play to double rooks. Let's just go ahead and try that. Let's just put the rooks on the file. Well, like I say, maybe now is the time to counterattack in the center, and then now we get that bishop got strong, so we got rid of it. Okay, now let's just complete the development here. Get the rooks connected, so that if there's some wholesale exchanges, on f8 will be okay. We don't have to take with the f-pawn. I'm just saying we could. But let's just do it. Let's say that black's happy with an even game here. Okay, and this is just one line just to show how the game might go. Yeah, white's attack is ground to a halt. Now white does have d5 if black reinforces. Well, let's take with the king just for the sake of keeping the bishop on d4. That gives a check, but we can get out of that easily enough. Let's just trade queens. No, let's keep them on. We got a diagonal here to play with. Let's keep them on. Okay, so now what's white's next plan here? Well, he's got to work on d5. That knight clearly went over there, and all it did was get out of the way of the f-pawn so it could move. So let's go combat that knight. And then now white's got d5, but black's okay here. He can just take it and then sink the knight in, and black should be okay here. He's not losing by any stretch of the imagination. If white trades off the knight, this is kind of interesting. I just wanted to show it. Theoretically, the white knight is better simply because all those pawns are on black squares, but it's not really the case because the black bishop is active, and black will seek to keep queens on the board here at all costs because if there's any kind of an attack, it's going to be black's. Well, you could say, going to give a check. Okay, fine, we'll trade it off. But black should be okay here. He has nothing to fear. He's not losing this. Just d5, and the game's even. So black should be happy with the draw. Let's go back. And it was just a fantasy line, but it just gives you an idea how to play these positions. And I'm just looking at the clock now. White's not taking any time. How much time did black spend on that move? Well, he spent 3 minutes. But again, I don't think it's wise to just go for trades of knights for bishops when you're losing time. Get your pieces out. Let them all work together. The bishop, the chance to get the bishop pair may come up later. And I think white handles it just fine. He just continues trying to grab a little territory. And now it's an interesting move here. F takes e3. It's probably the only chance for an advantage because since he couldn't advance his f-pawn and didn't have the f-file open, he's gone ahead and done it now. And if black exchanges on d4, white's got this reasonable-looking pawn center. And finally, the black pieces are coming out. And d5 it's okay, but it gives up the e5 square, and that's the one thing I don't like about it. But white didn't have to do it, but it's okay. It's not easily refuted. The game, I still believe the game is even, and black goes ahead and takes it now, and this is fine. And he could have even put the bishop there and let his. Here, I'll just show you. We'll talk about it. If you park the bishop there, okay, go ahead and give back the bishop here you so eagerly coveted. That's a really good knight. Look at that. It's not going to get kicked out by a pawn. The only way white can get rid of it is to use his knight to oppose it, and it's tying white down, at least for the moment, to the defense of a pawn. Okay, so looks like white's going to have to play queen e2. Now his queen is tied down until he plays b3, and as the game continued, well, let's see, it's black's move here. White ended up playing bishop h3, and then the bishops got traded off. But it's going to take quite a long time to oppose that knight on e5, and it's going to be a useful piece for any attack white tries. So this was a perfect chance to give back the bishop pair. Let's see. Let's just play bishop or rook here for black. Okay. Here, I'll show you what I had in mind. Let's just go ahead and trade them off as we did. Now we'll take with the queen, so that now the queen has some squares. And at some point, white needs to batten down the hatches on c4 and secure it. So let's just try it now. And, well, why not? Let's just play queen h3. What's white got in mind? I don't see any great advantage for white here. Meanwhile, black is getting ready to play knight g4 and keep white tied down to h2. The black rooks aren't in play, but that can change. Black might even have a possible break with f5 with the right timing. We have to double rooks. Play f6 first, and then rook f7, rook, and then rook back and rook over. But then white has time to counter that. But I like that knight on e5 better and have the bishops gone. So it comes back to these thinking deficiencies I talk about. People don't want to give up that bishop pair for any reason. I've got it. I can't get rid of it. But that knight, wow, that's just such a great knight. And when you can do that and keep it there, your game is rock solid. So now black still controls the square. It's going to take white a lot of work to get rid of that bishop, but I think the knight did more than the bishop does, because the bishop's not attacking c4, so the white queen is free to run around, right? White doesn't have to stop and defend c4 with b3, and what's this bishop really doing? It's not attacking g3. What's black's follow-up? It's got some pressure on c3, but that shouldn't be any problem. White can still do things. Anyway, it's going to take a while. You'll see eventually it does happen. It's going to take a while to get around to getting rid of that bishop there. Okay, so rook a8. I was suggesting rook c7, but rook a8's fine. And then now white doesn't want to trade, although theoretically could. That excuse me. This bishop on g2 is pretty bad. I don't know why he didn't just trade it or let it come off. Well, let's see. Play like Nimzovich. Let your opponent make exchanges to develop your pieces. Okay, so queen f1. If bishop takes, since black wants to trade so bad, now the queen's developed a little better. What's it going to have to aid down on h7? Well, unsure, but who knows? We can play for g4 or queen g4 and h4 and h5, or g4 g5, and then move the queen to g4 and try shoving the h-pawn. At least the queen's active, and black doesn't have a useful white square defender anymore, so could have tried that. But anyway, it's fine. It's definitely not losing. I think the game is very, very even. Okay, so a4. And here I think, well, not just yet, but you'll see it. Okay. Now black's determined to trade off that bishop, and b3. But here's the point, and I'll just say right now, I think black could comfortably just play a5 here, and now the queen side is permanently locked up. Now he didn't. He kept the idea of breaking with b5 open. But what's white going to do here? Okay, I got to ask that question. What's white going to do? Well, he could play knight b5, right? It's going to happen at some point. But black will just take it, and look which way is white going to take back? At some point, black's got a little pawn break here to activate his pieces, and now that bishop is really a lot better off because there's nothing to oppose it. White can't maneuver a knight around to get rid of it, and the black bishop is much better than the white bishop. Okay, it's so much better. And how's the white bishop going to get active? Its only hope is bishop f3, queen e2, and bishop g4. But black has time to deal with that, and he can just keep that white bishop out of the game. And with white having the break, or black having the break of a4, white's got to be careful, because suddenly these black rooks are going to get active. Like, let's just go ahead and show. We'll do it now. Let's just do it now. Get it over with. Now, if white does nothing, black's going to maybe push by. So at some point, you've got to take. Now, we're tying the queen down to c4 again. So how's white going to respond? Black's plan is to shove the queen over to a8 and penetrate. So let's just go and play white's plan. I said get the bishop activated. Okay. Now we don't have to stop and play queen e2, but we've got it activated. But what's its objective? I think the only thing it can do is go to c6. And that might not be bad, but black can just take a moment. Well, he can't play rook d8 because f7 will fall, but let's just go tickle the queen, okay? What's wrong with that? Now the queen's got to stay on us somewhere. Let's try e2. Okay, now we'll come from behind. Okay, now I'm maneuvering the bishop to c6 just for the sake of it. Now look at this. Wow. Now maybe white has resources, but who wants to defend this as white? I sure don't. I don't want to have to face all the possibilities of this. So I think again it goes back to this thinking deficiency. White or black won't play a5 because he says, you know, he's a bishop grabber. He won't play a5 because he says, oh, knight b5, and I can't take it off because I'm giving up my bishop. Well, it's a perfect time to give up your bishop, and I just showed why. So, you know, you guys value bishops too much. Knights are just as good and sometimes better, so be willing to part with them. I am, and it helped my chess when I got over that bishop phobia or whatever it is, or bishop love or bishop envy. Okay, so, but a5 just says, the other drawback behind it too is it says all the action is going to take place over here on the king side. We're going to be working on ooh, where's that? Why is it not making me an arrow? Have I got lag? It's not making an arrow there. It's made a circle. Oh well. Anyway, all the action's on the king side, but black should be fine here. He shouldn't have anything to worry about, and just transfer pieces over to hold on to the king position, and you know, bishop e8, f6, bishop f7. Black's fine, if whatever it takes. Anyway, let's just go see what happened. Okay, bishop g4. He didn't play to h3 yet. Okay, so now white says, now I'll get rid of it. I don't like that bishop. And black wants to keep it. And then, should we go around again? Nope. Take it off. Okay, so it's still not too late for a5. Okay, a5 just locks up the position, and black doesn't have to part with his bishop to do it. But what's that knight's future? Can someone tell me what that knight's future is? I don't see one. I really don't see one. It's not threatening a thing. It's never going to threaten anything. If black's not careful, it'll get to c7, and even then, what's it going to do from there? It's not. Okay, so in this position, with the queen side locked up, all white can do is go back to a plan of getting the knight to f3 and trying to trade it off for that bishop, and even then black should be fine. Okay, so queen out, and actually, you know, looks like black's okay, but he's might be trying to conduct an attack a little too prematurely here. Now, why do you say that? Well, all he's got attacking are these guys, and everything else is defended. H2 guards g3, and e2 guards g3. So black doesn't really have a follow-up. This rook is still undeveloped. It was developed earlier and it went back. You could argue it's developed now because it's planning b5 and trying to get involved. So, but this rook isn't helping at all. So black will have to try playing a king g7 and rook h8 if there's anything going to materialize. That's his only hope. And here's white playing very quickly, looking at the clock. He's barely used much more than his increment, but black's taken his time. And I actually prefer black here, even though he didn't lock up the queen side. But I just don't think black has enough to play for a win. But I think a draw is a fine result. And also, you're looking at about a 150-point rating disadvantage, so a draw by black is fine. But before black can get his plans of king g7 and rook h8 going, white kicks the queen out. And now he's going to get rid of that bishop. And does black really have to get rid of it? It doesn't really have a great future, and it's going to take white some time to get rid of it. But what's white's follow-up? Okay, let's talk about it for a second. Okay, this was what black was playing for. Let's just do it now and get it over with. Okay, let's suppose. So white's got to stop and deal with a couple of things. Okay, a4 is hanging. Okay, to takes, queen takes, for what it's worth. And does white have enough? But if white takes, now black has the open file. Now we don't know what he's doing with it yet. I showed some ideas earlier. But now white's going to go about his way and try and get rid of that bishop. Now let's just keep it instead of letting it get traded off. Let's just keep it. What's white's follow-up? That's my question. White could try for e5, but the net result of that is it's just going to give black a set of double pawns, and black should be okay. So let's just go ahead and try it. e5, and I'll just take with the pawn. Okay. Now white can't play knight takes e5, and I'm keeping this bishop in reserve, and we'll get it activated later. Now, like I say, it's black's turn now to do something. Let's just stick this rook here. Okay. Now the point is we want to play pawn takes and make you take back with the queen, and then there's a couple of targets for both sides. That's just an idea. But where's white's follow-up? I just don't see it. He's got some pressure on f7, so maybe that's it. But I don't know. We could have traded the bishop off. We could have put it on f6 too. That keeps the knight out of g5. So there's all kinds of possibilities there. But let's just go on with the game. But it's okay. Black doesn't have to do it. But here's the point where I think black should have just gone ahead and just played a5, because really white doesn't have a follow-up now. After knight takes and takes, you do some wholesale exchanges on f8, and king takes, and now we bring the queen over, and the king comes to g7, and really white has nothing here. There's no entry square for the queen into the black position, period. All black does is just keep his queen in the vicinity, and he's fine. He could even probably offer to trade queens. See, there's no entry period on the queen side. White would have to gambit a pawn to break something open, and that's risky. Okay, so you can actually gambit two pawns. So white has nothing there. The queen can get to f2 and f3, but where does it go into black's position from there? It doesn't. It can't go to f4. That's covered. It can't go to f5. It can't go to f6. It can't go to f7, and it can't go to f8. How does white make progress here? He doesn't. Okay, the only thing you can do is try and break with g4. But black should be fine on any attempt to that. Just move the king up. Now white finally has to break g4. Well, take it. Now we'll come up and threaten it. Now we got to be careful. Maybe queen on h4 would be mate, but white has to be able to do that. How's he going to get his queen there without dropping in g4 himself? Well, answer is he isn't. Okay, so it's black's move here. He can play. He's got to keep the queen attacking g4. Yeah, maybe there is some progress here. Now black has to move his queen, and then I don't see it. Just queen d7. Black. Then there's probably better ways to defend than putting the king at risk like this. But I don't see a break for white. So, anyway, queen a7. Now this just clearly tips your hand. He's trying to play b5, because why else would the queen go there? Well, if you're going to play b5, why didn't you just do it there? Okay. So, and keep the queen on a better square. Okay, so anyway, queen a7, and I guess he visions that the rooks are coming off, and that the queen will be able to penetrate down there, and now b5. And unfortunately, though, this is the wrong time, because it's just hanging a pawn. So black had time. He gained 16 seconds, so he spent 29 seconds on a move which hangs a pawn. So he wasn't using that much time. Again, he can, oops, I want to go the other way. He can just play a5 here and dare white to show his stuff, okay? What's white going to do? Takes, 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 check, and then we play here again. And once again, the question is, where does white penetrate? He doesn't. And we go back to queen e2 and try and g4. But black will have resources here. Just queen e2, we'll try it again. Take and take. If you take with the queen, I'm certain it's a drawn king and pawn ending. Queen takes queen. Yeah, it's got to be. But because neither side has tempo moves really. So anyway, just pawn takes, and it's black's move. He can just go ahead with. He doesn't have to move the queen in or the king up like I was suggesting. Just move the queen up and hey, let's offer a queen trade. What are you going to do, black? Or what are you going to do, white? Well, there's nothing on the H file because unless you play G5 in combination, then get the queen to H6. But what's the follow-up? There isn't one. We'll just allow it. It's black's move. Okay, fine. Go ahead and play G5, and then I'm pretty sure there's nothing here. Let's see. Check. Now what's white? So. Bring the king up. Well, let's just offer a queen trade. And white has to retreat because if he doesn't, you know, how does white make any progress here? There's no entry square for the king. The game is a draw. The kings just move around and we reach 50 moves and shake hands. So anyway, black certainly wasn't losing, but b5 is the losing move because now white just happily liquidates. And then goes and grabs a pawn, and there it is. And white's just winning. Black needs to try for a perpetual check, but his queen doesn't have any open lines to go to. Kind of a shame. He did play it well. And really there's no hope. Now white just starts running his pawns. And here the threat is queen b7 check and wins. So black realized the futility of going any longer and resigned. So it was an extremely interesting game. Black had chances. There's definitely some different choices. Hopefully you learned something with the ideas of the bishops and knights on this. And I want to thank everyone that took the time to watch this. And I'll look forward to talking to you all real soon with my next video. There's several more to make. Take care.